welcome to Mission Majjhima. Ajahn. So Ajahn, tell us about the Cūḷagopālaka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 34.
So the shorter discourse on the cowherd continues this simile of a cowherd, and this points to that a lot of the Buddha is giving similes about things which people are familiar with in his time. So in this extended simile, the Buddha addresses the monks, comparing himself and his way of leading his disciples to a skilled cowherd. So an unskilled Magadhan cowherd, Magadha being where he's located, this unskilled cowherd basically leads all of his cows across a stream without looking at the near shore or the far shore. And they go across and all get bunched up in the middle and meet with ruin. Whereas the skilled cowherd leads the strongest cows first. So leads the bulls, the fathers of the herd. These are compared to arahants. The next, he leads over the strong cattle. These are like the non-returners. Then he leads over the heifers. These are like the once-returners. Then he leads over the calves and the feeble cattle. This is like stream enterers. And then the just-born calves and who are being led on by their parents mewing. So that is like the Dhamma followers or faith followers. And then the Buddha concludes with just a beautiful verse, and this is the first time in the Majjhima that we've met with this exact format of the Buddha giving a teaching in prose and then ending in verse. Ajahn, what would you like to draw out of this sutta?
A few things maybe. One is, and perhaps to kind of go directly into the stages of awakening, because they can be somewhat inscrutable at first for someone just encountering them and seem kind of like a strange esoteric leveling system. I think we may have spoken about this briefly in a previous discourse, but it's worth talking about here again. The 4 levels of enlightenment are generally mapped onto 10 fetters which are given up. So a stream enter, a sotapanna, relinquishes doubt, attachment to rites and rituals, and self-view, identifying explicitly with the 5 aggregates of clinging as personality. And they, it said, will never fall back to a lower realm and are destined for awakening within 7 lifetimes at most. And the next level of enlightenment is a sakadagami, a once-returner, which is someone who's attenuated the 2 fetters of sensual desire and ill will. And they are destined to only return to this realm 1 more lifetime before, The 4th or 3rd level of awakening is an anagami or a non-returner. They've completely done away with ill will and lust, and they are destined to never be reborn again as a human, but rather, or even in the upper deva realms, but rather to be reborn in the pure abodes, as they're known, before attaining awakening from there. And then the 4th is an arahant who destroys the final 5 fetters of desire for rebirth in the form realms, the formless realms, restlessness, conceit, and avidya, ignorance. And they are completely awakened. And to note that it's useful to see these 4 levels as letting go of different levels of conditioning. So sotapanna, who lets go of self-view, of identity, identifying as this is my name, this is my personality, etc. And with rites and rituals, etc., they've let go of the social level of conditioning, what comes since they're born. Then the biological level of the conditioning takes longer. It's deep. And that's why I think the 2 levels of once-returner and non-returner are required until that's let go of sensual desire and ill will, those basic biological impulses to draw towards and push away, to feed or run. And the final 5 fetters are the conditioning or the kind of elements of the mind itself, which are let go of. Conceit, this sense of I am, the subtle hovering, which can be restlessness and ignorance, along with desire for these more refined rebirths. So just to map those 4 on, and then the very interesting two figures here, which are the Dhamma follower and the faith follower, which are kind of strange categories that are a bit hard to get our mind around because they're not yet Sotapannas, stream enters, and yet they are destined for awakening, the Buddha says, in this and other discourses. And it's a bit heartening, actually, because, the Dhamma follower is one who's thought over the teachings, heard them, and has the five indriya faculties of faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And they're destined for awakening eventually, for Sotapanna, by the time they die or at death. And a faith follower is usually thought of as slightly below that, but at least in the commentaries, I'm not sure how accurate that is or not, but they have a modicum, they approve of the teachings and have affection and faith. And that's such a sweet acknowledgement of kind of a more, it gives a lot of us a bit more hope, perhaps, in the sense of widening that view of what a noble being could be, or at least those moving towards that stage. Ajahn, what would you draw out of this discourse more?
One thing to pull out, which isn't explicitly said, but it's rather amazing. The Buddhist Sangha, the monastic Sangha, is perhaps the oldest institution, definitely one of the oldest institutions in human history that's still in existence. And how did that happen? And the Buddha kind of hints at how it is. There's another sutta which the Buddha says that because he laid down rules for the Sangha, and that helps. We've got very clear structures which we recite every 2 weeks, but also this aspect of he's leading the arahants. These are not normal humans. These are people who've reached a superior human state. It starts out as a belief, a foundational belief of mundane right view that there are samanas and brahmanas, there are people who practiced what the Buddha has taught and then had realized nibbana, basically. And there are arahants. And what the Buddha first did after he attained enlightenment was to go and find his old students and teach them until they became arahants themselves. And this is, he didn't go off and find the biggest place he could teach to teach the most people. But basically he's wanting to have very potent teachers. He's teaching teachers because that's where inspiration really lies. Talk is cheap compared to actual realization. So that's rather fascinating. He's leading these bulls across the ford first because that's what inspires us to keep going forward. And you and I, and many people still believe, it is still possible to become enlightened in the world. And I think we both believe that there are still arahants who exist in the world. Something else is just to draw out this character of the arahant. There's a pericope, a stock phrase, where the Buddha describes an arahant, saying that they have their taints destroyed, these asavas, the outflows. They have lived the holy life. They have done what needs to be done. This is a characteristic of someone who's practiced, is that there is an end. This is what inspired Ajahn Chah to practice, is that he was looking for what had an end, whereas so much in life just doesn't have an end. They have put down the burden, they've reached their own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, which you described, and are completely liberated through final knowledge. They've breasted Māra's stream and have gotten safely across to the further shore. Ajahn, anything else to draw out?
Just perhaps quickly the fact that one knows, to know the ford, you need to know this shore and the further shore. And just the sense of, yes, we know what the destination sounds like in the suttas, but where are we here? What is our situation? What is our, capability? What does good practice look like for us? So to know the far shore and the near shore in terms of actually intuiting the ford. And finally, just that last, this trope of enlightened being speaking exclamation in verse is, you see it throughout traditions, Milarepa's songs, Chinese, Shu Yun's enlightenment verses. And it's just this beautiful kind of moment of joy, of saying the doors to the deathless are open, like Luang Por Sumedho says. So I love that this is one of the first times we see that in this discourse, or in this Nikaya.
And that last line is, rejoice then mightily and set your hearts where safety lies.
Do you have anything else to bring up in this discourse, Ajahn?
Nope, only the word of the week, which is arahant. Arahant, which comes from the root araha, which is to be worthy. And the Sanskrit version is arhat, which people also hear.
So if you're joining us for the premiere, we'll see you on Zoom in a second, and otherwise we'll see you next week for Majjhima Nikaya 35. Ajahn.